My own inspiration for writing music, a lot of this stemmed back to roots that I heard in Bach. In this project, I want to take the time and actually pay gratitude to the original source.
Marco hasn't disturbed what Bach wrote. What he did was he drew the emotional content out of them and puts them in the forefront.
I had met Sandy at a premiere that we did for Snowpiercer. I knew that if I was going to do this, that she was the person that I would want to do it with.
I think this project is absolutely nuts and also really brilliant.
When we play this music, we're having so much fun, and it's difficult and it's challenging, but it's also really rewarding, and I want the audience to feel that. It's not a short personal story for me. I mean, I'm going to relay it quickly, but it's been residing in me for a long time. I used to study piano as a young boy, and Bach, the Well-Tempered Clavier, was given almost as an exercise to play. It taught pianists freedom of the hands and basic structure of following lines, and as I started studying composition, it became very important learning about counterpoint, and it was always sort of instructional. And to me, I guess it was always sort of a little bit flat and austere, but yet inside the work of Bach, I would have all sorts of ideas that would be spurred on, whether it was from an ostinato that he did, or whether it was from a melodic fragment, and I would have these ideas early on, but I knew it was sort of sacrilegious to tamper with Bach. He was the master, so I let it be for quite a long time, and even though I had ideas about it, I sort of kept it quiet. I guess as I became more mature as a composer, I did a classical training at Yale School of Music, and I graduated in '91 in composition. I thought, for a while, I thought I was going to go into teaching music or just having a concert career. But honestly, I got a little bit disenfranchised with it because I felt like there was a disconnect between a lot of what us as composers were writing and an audience. It was almost like we were writing for each other. And this whole bigger idea of examining this utopian vision of examining the human condition through music was something that got lost along the way, and so I got disillusioned, and I thought maybe through film music, this is a more unique way, a more immediate way to reach an audience. And so I investigated this, and I the more I learned about it, the more involved I got, and I started writing film scores. But the seeds of what I was trained, what I learned through Bach especially, never left me. And every now and then it pops up in a film score somewhere. It pops up all the time through just things learning counterpoint and all that. But
Well, even if I may, even like your use of of a staccato or a solo instrument to create a poignant moment is not it could be 310 to Yuma. It doesn't matter. It could be the latest Fast and Furious franchise. It doesn't matter. You still spin out those moments in a score, which for a lot of mixed scores you don't hear.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I can feel that. It's kind of like, as I was an opera singer, I'm not a composer by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know that musician connection, and you're still you, no matter what composer veneer you put on or whatever costume you put on, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, I guess maybe it was the beginning of the pandemic where I thought, wouldn't it be great to actually pay direct homage, pay gratitude to the original source of all the inspiration that I have, and to me it traces back to Bach. These piano pieces that he did were pivotal, not just for me, but also for music as we know it today. I mean, his work was probably the most influential for Mozart and Beethoven, and people that these greats influenced, and the lineage comes all the way up to today. So I thought, let me go back and lean into these original impressions that I had and still carry with me to this day from when I was a kid, and when I would
That's
play,
brilliant.
yeah, and when I would play, I talk about, I have spoken about with Sandy Cameron, the violinist. She interviewed me once, and she was asking about some of these personal narratives. I was talking about number 8, how I would, as a little kid, I hear those first chords, these minor chords, and it's almost like, but the timing is in a triplet time, which is almost like a slow dance. To me, it was like this broken down waltz. It was like an old man that was maybe at the end of his life, and as the piece develops, he's like going into these details of his life, and so this is something that I leaned into, and I started working on these pieces. And as I did, I realized that the other thing I wanted to do is I really feel like, is there a way to establish a connection with a younger generation that may not have experience with classical music, and to bring them into the excitement and the intense emotionality of classical music? But how do you do that, and what would that look like? And I thought, well, I remember going to like rock shows when I was a kid, old, when people used to still have like 20-minute guitar solos and all that. And so I was thinking, well,
Yeah.
let's lean into the virtuoso nature of the best musicians and really bring that out. And so an audience member is involved, almost like they're watching a great athlete perform. Something that is exciting, not superficially, but is integral to the music, but that the pieces are exciting as well. And so these are the things I thought about when I thought about reimagining these Bach preludes, and also the timing. I thought, if there's going to be a time to do it, it's now. This year, 2021, is the 300th anniversary of Bach finishing writing the Well-Tempered Clavier, his book 1, and it just seemed like this is the time. If I'm going to do this at any time, I have some time now because of COVID and all that. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. I actually love these homages. I don't know if you heard Max Richter's Vivaldi Recomposed.
Yeah.
but it's one of my favorites, in terms of that. I think, younger to older, but I think also your enthusiasm around Bach and your position, I think, and how you speak about him, as an inspiration, I think really helps people understand too. Because I think that people who, when they aspire to be musicians, and they look at the world and kind of, you're talking about a little bit, you've got your traditional silos and you're off the beaten track, you've got your producers now. So you have all these different silos by which to compose music. But, what stands apart for me are the ones who have a thread, the ones that have something that they really are trying to say and get across, even though it's in their palette. I like to hear about that, so it's exciting for me to hear that reverence for Bach, because, he's still around. Everybody still loves him. Everyone owns at least one work by Bach, just like they, at least one, they've got that organ concerto, the one used for horror all the time. I think it's $5.95 or something like that.
I mean, exactly. People are familiar with Bach, even if they don't even know. I mean, they've heard it.
They go, da la da la da, right?
Yeah. So taking that that idea of and some of these, look, some of these preludes, I'm sure nobody, unless you're a fan of the Beltrami clavier, probably wouldn't recognize. But there's a couple that you might, because they're a little bit more popular. Bach wrote these originally as a, to try out the equal temperament of the new instrument at the time. That's why he did 48 of them. There were 2 books. There was 24, one in each key. So they were, before the equal temperament came about, it was, I'm probably saying things that the audience probably knows already, but it was.
I'll say, teach it, brother.
I mean, it was. It's crazy. Like, if you heard before this time, if you couldn't play in different keys, and if you heard something that was supposed to be in, say, the key of C, but you played it in the key of C sharp, it would sound horribly out of tune, and just because it was based on the overtone series, which, when you divide up a string in half, you get the octave, and then you get the fifth and the third and so forth. And so it was based on this natural progression of harmonics, but that makes it so that you can only play in one key. This tuning was something new. So anyway, when I did this, I thought, oh, it'll be fun to do one in each key. I did 12. I did 12. It's not necessary anymore, but I thought it'd be nice. And I picked pieces that really stuck out to me when I was playing them, that had something. But what I really wanted to do was create a completely different environment for each piece.
Nice.
So, and to cover the terrific range of emotion that I know Bach felt, I know people felt, but it wasn't written into his music in terms of dynamics and all that. It was, these pieces are, as I said, they're austere, but they hold within them the keys to life that we know it. And so to really, and maybe it's my film scoring that has helped me with this, but to really bring these to life and add color to these worlds that I feel are in there, and the complete range of human emotion and everything from despair to elation and excitement and anything you can imagine is contained in this music. So it was really fun. It was a really fun project to work on.
Well, it's really cool that you say that, and especially thinking of COVID, because I think one thing in a lot of interviews that I've done with people dealing with COVID, artists and performers, and writers too, it's the level of emotion that you take in becomes so much greater because you don't have all the outside distractions that you normally do. Right. I mean, I remember those first months of COVID when the air was even silent because there were no planes,
Yeah.
and after the first months, the phones really kind of died down, in terms of, are you okay? Are you okay? It's because everyone was like, well, we're just stuck here now, So I think a lot of people got to reflect. And I think you're right about the timing, not only because of the anniversary, but I think that people are now open to more intellectualism in terms of, especially younger people, because I think they find, it's like, well, television got boring, everything got boring, but I can still look up cool stuff on the internet. And that's where I live. I'm constantly posting arts because I think that people need that. I think people need to see your name associated, not only with Scream but also with Bach and this relationship, so that people can see that well-tempered artist, as it were. I mean, I wouldn't tell anybody to stay in one genre anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. And and if there's some way, you're right, this is a period of reflection, and whether this you say lost time or whatever is a way to look inward. I think it's also a way to find inspiration, and just as, and really, that's what the essence of this project is about. It's about sort of this continuum of inspiration. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's something that, and finding this starting place to so much of what has been come after it, and paying gratitude to this source of inspiration. And if there's some way that what inspires me can then inspire other people, then this continuum continues. It's it's the I think that's what's really exciting about artistic endeavors in themselves, is that they allow for a broader other people to become involved in an inspirational process, which is really why I think we get into music and the arts to begin with, because we want to connect with people, we want to inspire, we want everyone wants to connect, and that's something that I think became really evident during COVID.
Yeah, totally. Well, and so, this being kind of your first public concert here going on, in March 3rd, at the Soroyan with Musicum, Delirium Musicum. I've not heard of them before. They sound like a really cool group from what I read in their bio. How did you happen across them or choose them?
Well, they are affiliated with the Soraya. They do a lot of shows there, and they're, I've seen some of their work. They're amazing musicians. I like their idea that they want to remove barriers between the audience and the musicians, and they often stand when they play and don't use music stands. And in this case, they will, because they've gotten the music. It's difficult music, and they haven't had a ton of time on this. But that is something that I also am really interested in. This idea of immersing the audience in a much more visceral response to music, trying to take away the barriers that often exist in a traditional setting between an audience that's separated from the musicians, with it's a conductor whose back is to them, and there's music stands, and there's all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good connection, and And then I have the soloists as well, Sandy Cameron, who has really been instrumental in this project. When I wrote the first one, which was Prelude number 2 that I did, and I played it for Sandy, and she was like, "Wow, this is really great." She encouraged me to really pursue this as a complete concert. At first, for me, it was just a mental exercise. And then we got other soloists involved. We got Lucia Micarelli also playing solo violin, and Eric Byers on cello, and Holly Sedilos singing, and Rob Thies on piano. So it's like this. It's a lot of soloists with a chamber ensemble support.
Cool. Is there a visual element to the show, or is that for later days?
I mean, we that's an ongoing project. Yeah. There, ideally, yes, there is. And I was wondering what they could be. I have some filmmaker friends of mine that were interested in doing movies with it. We did a little workshop of this in December in a club in Hollywood, and I actually had one film to go with to see what the reaction would be. For the most part, people, I mean, they like it, but they want to focus on the musicians. And so I think at some point I like the idea of having a visual artist work with this and create something for the show as a whole. But I don't know, it might be too specific to have individual movies that go with the pieces. I feel like it almost limits music in a way.
That's a really interesting point. I love that, because you're right. There is a visceral listening experience to visual that we cross over the line too much with visual, especially now. It's like everything's a video or nobody pays attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be a hybrid of some kind, right? Like, is it, a cartoon isn't really it, because that again takes away from musicians, and Disney's done that to death. So it's like, what's that? What is it? And that creative ground to me just seems to be very exciting. Is it virtual concert hall? Is it holograms? Is it physical and holograms? What is that hybrid? Because that's our future, right? Because I think a lot, even looking, I was an opera singer my whole life. I've been embedded in it since day one. And there, I'm only 57, but I'm already bored. I can't see Carmen the same way every time. I listen to the music as often as I like, but to see it with the yellow uniforms, or, some woman pretending to be a tart when sexuality has evolved so much further than that, it's like, it's tough. It's really tough. So, but I hope for people, with your sensibilities to help lead us into that new frontier, because no one's thinking about it. And I'd hate for everything, to get enveloped into a video game and never be, a competitive, entertainment again.
It's something that we have to explore together. I'm not sure exactly what form it takes, but I think working in a collaborative way with other, with visual artists and people that might have vision, maybe we come up with something that, and so that's why I say it's ongoing. I mean, it's not. I haven't solved exactly what that's going to be, but I do feel like it's something that makes it, a more immersive experience, and how that happens, it's, still to be determined.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this. It's a new road for you, obviously, and I think that's really cool. Like I said, I've been a huge fan of your work. I found a lot, and I grew up listening to Beethoven and Bach myself. That's all I listened to when I was a kid. I didn't even get into popular music till the 80s, because you had no choice. But when I heard your soundtracks, they brought me back to that sense of deep classical supportive soundtracks, as rather than scary music, although I have to say you do compose a great jump scare.
I have to be taught how to do that, by the way. Scream was actually the first horror movie I'd ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And so it's and I yeah, but thank you. I mean, that's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate that. We're sort of working, composers work in a vacuum, and they're not. So to hear that from you is really special. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the interview, because part of my reasoning was to tell you just that. So seldom do we get the compliments that people are out there feeling and enjoying in people's works. So when I meet with composers, I love to tell them, how much I enjoy their work, because I do. I really, really do. I listen deeply and enjoy it therein. So this is great. I'm glad. I just have to ask, though, it kind of brings up the question, would you ever consider like a symphony or a symphonic work or some kind of large scale orchestral piece?
Yeah, I would. It's funny. I have sketches. I have ideas. Having the time to do it. This was sort of a unique period, this COVID time, and I think maybe when the film stuff settles down a bit, and I'm still. It's just like nonstop.
I'm sure.
Work, and I enjoy it. I really enjoy the projects that I'm doing, and so. But yes, that. In fact, I had plans. I was going to do an opera with Tommy Lee Jones was going to do a libretto for me, and we were both into the thing, and it's just we're both so busy, and it's just everything just gets pushed into the back burner. So yeah, I do have plans. When I don't know.
Well, when you get your Oscar, which you will deserve, I'm sure, then you can decide those things, right?
Yeah, I guess maybe we have to one step at a time here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you blush, but thank you again. So I want everyone to go to this show. I think it's a great show. It's at the Soroyan. I'll put a poll. I'm going to put all the information for you guys to follow here and everywhere that I post this video. So please, you got to check out Marco Beltrami's new path in taking in his intimate connection with Johann Sebastian Bach.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, Joe.
Likewise. Take care. Much love.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.